I began the original talk in with the presentations by Edwin and Jackson about stories of self and also Barack Obama. And I just want to recap some of that so that you relate to why that is so important. And in part, very honestly, I raised the question for Akar in his talk, because if you are a person of poverty or a person who's victimized, how do you escape that victimization when you have even all sorts of things going against you? Your education, your income, uh, your hope, and there are people telling you to do this or that. How do you escape that? And I think it comes down to, again, the story of self and how you use the story of self. That is what I was trying to project in the earlier talks. I think every one of us has a story of self, but it's not just for us. It's for the people around us that we use it, and we have to talk to people. And one of the biggest problems that we're facing right now in the climate change movement, in my opinion, is we do not talk to other people. We talk to ourselves. I am happy that we are here in this conference, but we need to reach out beyond that. So I'm going to share my screen a little bit more and come back to where we were. And you were going to say maybe, well, how do we talk to others? If you are in the global north, the normal problem is it's difficult because people don't want to talk to each other, which is a remarkable thing. Even climate change people don't want to talk to each other. And related to that was, how do we organize? How do we bring people together to do extraordinary things? A quotation from Barack Obama, which I think is very simple and yet profound. Bringing people together is by, in part, the use of the story of self. And we went through 3 areas overall, which were, if I can re-summarize this, one is having one-on-ones with people. The other was house meetings or community meetings or location meetings wherever you are, such as at the Labor Center. And the third was what we call peace and climate justice teams. And I just want to talk briefly about the one-on-ones. I had a training back in, I think it was 2011 or 10, with the OFA, which was the Organizing for America with Barack Obama. And Barack Obama by that time was merging ahead and had become president. And we talked about the elevator talk. And you say, well, what's an elevator talk? Okay. That is, you get into an elevator with someone and you have 2 minutes as the elevator is going up to give your story of self to that person so that they can relate to what the problem is. And to be honest with you, if I talked about all the militarization in the United States and all the atomic nuclear weapons, I don't think I would reach that person. But if I talked about with that person about what they were doing or what they felt, if I asked them, what do you think of the weather today? And they said, oh, it's raining a lot and I've never seen it rain so much. Or if you talk about how do you have children? And that person says in the elevator, yes, I have children. And you ask them, you tell them, your story of self, that's a beginning. I have children. And they were asking me the other day, how will it be in 20 years? And I sat there for a while and I didn't know how to answer them honestly. because I know that climate change is here and it's already evident, but they don't want to hear it or cannot hear it. And I don't want to frighten them. And you tell that to somebody in the elevator who is concerned about their children. When they get off at the 8th floor, if you have a slow moving elevator, they will hear you, hopefully. I think the average human being is going to hear when you talk about things like your children and common values. Um, there is one famous organizer in the United States who talks about the need for sharing our common values. And you get those common values by your story of self. That's the point. You are transferring what you feel that they can adopt it and feel the same way. Now, that relates a lot to not just the climate issue, but it also relates to the peace issue. Uh, just to give one simple example, there are so many examples, but if someone is related to the military and you get into the elevator with them and you talk about war and what that costs and what it means for us, they most likely will be able to relate to it. And you may incorporate it on a story of self that you need health care or you need food on the table. And if I see all these weapons being thrown out that blow up and kill people and end up nowhere, I am misdirecting, or the powers that be are misdirecting where the money should go, which is into our better well-being. Okay, so I have up here in front of my screen something else which I will show you, which is ABR, which is another thing that I was taught in the Obama campaign. And I have to emphasize, it was organizing. It was organizing for, in that case, America. ABR stands for always be recruiting. And the idea is when we are out talking to people, we just don't talk to them. We urge them to take action. And I think almost every talk that we've heard so far is taking action. But how do you get them involved? And how do you take that step beyond just telling them a story of self? And I want to go through a few things. Believe it or not, a petition. You've heard this story, or you've heard now that we have translated the petition. First, it was in Swedish, then it was in English in front of you, and now it's been translated into Swahili, and it's online. And it's also being, if a car is on schedule, he's starting to work on translating it into Hindi and many other languages. Now, why a petition? Believe it or not, when you get onto that elevator, it's not always easy to talk to the person or when you are on the street. But when you have a petition, it gives you an excuse to ask that person. And just for reference, let me just go through what is a petition about. It's a tool to build those one-on-ones, those house meetings, or those climate action teams. And a petition usually has a demand, such as cheaper transportation, or no plastics in Victoria, or stop the violence. It also explains shortly why these demands are important, and it targets a group. It can be the politicians, it can be a religious leader, it can be a university leader, it can be a corporation, and it normally has a title. And then often in the petitions that we in one group of Friday for Future use, we ask always two questions. Do you want more information from us? And do you want to volunteer? And those two topics, those two questions lead to people asking or saying, yes, I want to hear more, but in no way do I want to volunteer. We usually get that in about 92% of the answers, no to volunteer, but we get about 8% that say, yes, we want to volunteer. And then if we follow up, by the way, and asking them, they really don't want to volunteer yet because they don't trust you. Who are you having a piece of paper and talking about how bad climate is? So you have to try to connect with them. And that's why the petition is important, because it gives you a chance to talk to a person and spread an issue. And it doesn't have to be just climate change. It can be about the forests that are going to be removed in your backyard. It can be about the fossil fuels that are being produced in a particular area. It can be about the pipeline that's being built from the Congo or Uganda into Tanzania. And one should say, and one can ask, do you really want to build a pipeline in this direction? Should we not improve our hospitals instead, or our way of life by building a train system instead of a massive pipeline? Who benefits from that oil? And all sorts of questions like that. And obviously benefiting from a train that goes from that same direction is much better in so many ways. It's cheaper transportation, it's healthier for the environment, and so on. So just to show you a sample of what we have, we asked people, do you care to sign our petition to help end whatever the purpose is? That's the essential thing. It could be to end our poverty, to stop the flooding, to keep food prices down, to stop politicians, misspelled here by the way, from going to war. For instance, in the country that I live right now, which is Sweden, the enormous hysteria is to prepare for war and not prepare for the environment. And 10 years ago, that was the other way around. So you're relating to the interests of the person. And then the petition asks those two other things, information and volunteer, which gives you information about them and allows you to contact them. Because if they say they want information, obviously, then you have a chance to follow up and say, okay, would you like to come to our meeting? Would you like to join our group, the Amazon Theatrics, and dance with us and have fun and learn about why we care about trying to do something in our community? And you also get, if they say volunteer, then you have a way of following up. They also, and this is really important, since we are involved in the environmental community, we usually, as I said, talk to ourselves. But with a petition, you talk to people you don't know. And that enables you to build up a contact and then a contact base and invite those very people that you don't know to come. And I grant you, you have to think, do people feel comfortable if some stranger talks to you and says, you want to come and hear about whatever it is, plastics? You have to be able to build trust with them at the same time. And that's why when you're presenting a petition, you have to think of your approach. Then comes the final thing of why we have petitions, which is really the most important reason. It's to enable us to create a power at the base, the grassroots movement, and to push politicians to do something. Right now across the world, if you look at it, whether it's in Kenya or Sweden or the United States especially, heaven forbid, most politicians will say one thing or say it nicely and then do nothing when it comes to the environment or to fossil fuels. And in a local community, that's even true. But just take this as a thought example. If you build your forces around a petition, what happens? Well, you come with 500 signatures and you say, here, if you see my little piece of paper, here I have 500 signatures. The politician will kind of yawn. Thank you. I'm glad you're concerned about this. And into the waste paper basket it goes. Then you come with another 500 and another 500, different signatures. They will eventually not throw that piece of paper into the wastebasket. They will listen to you, and then they'll start to get scared. And if you come with 10,000 people at the same time that you have 10,000 signatures, or let's say you have 10,000 signatures and 5,000 people, they will get even more scared because of all those people. And just to give you an example here, and an example that I was involved with, that it works. I was organizing in the United States in Arizona. And we we started out with nothing, my wife and I, and two other people. And we started gathering signatures in front of the library, in front of community places where there were people. And we gathered first 500 and we submitted them to the city council. And they said, well, what are these guys crazies doing? Oh, petition about climate change. And they they were a bit stymied because they heard us saying this, and we were actually supporting them in what they were doing, but they couldn't believe that we would give them a petition anyway. And then we went to 5,000, and a year later, I think it was another 1,000, and we did this over 2 years and up to 6,000, and even I think it was 6,500. And by that time, we asked them to declare a climate emergency. And that climate emergency became the first declaration of a climate emergency in the state of Arizona. And we were only a small community of about 70, 80,000. But the point was, the politicians were catching on that we were behind them. We were not attacking them, we were pushing them. Now, you can attack a politician, but the best way is to push them and show that you have support and people want something done. Right now, a lot of people are stymied no matter where they are. Okay, now let's see how far we are, because I want you all to have lunch before you get too hungry. Shall I go on, or do you want me to stop, Mary? You who are listening, you can put up raise your thumb if you want me to continue, or if you want to go eat and lunch is ready. Okay. I put the PCJ Kisumo people on the spot, and I see two people, one in a nice shirt, and he can put up his thumb or put it down, and I will stop. I don't see either. Okay. I'm going to go into one related topic, which is quite interesting. People have talked here about funding. We need money. Well, money is a resource. And the question we should all ask ourselves is, what is our resource? What really is our resource? If you are in Kenya or even in Sweden, our resource is not money. When I began, I talked about the story of self, and that we have three areas that we usually use in our resourcefulness. We use our brains or our mind, we use our heart, and we use our hands. If you go to work, believe it or not, you may be using your mind, but you're also using your hands to type onto your keyboard, for instance. Or if you are farming, you are using, again, both your mind and your heart and your hands. So we essentially all have those three things: mind, heart, and hands. And when we have a story of self, we also have a tool. And that story of self we can use with our minds and with our heart and with our hands. The hands part is you have a petition in your hand. The story of self part is to get a signature by using your heart. Now, you can use your mind too, obviously, in doing that in the techniques that you use. We have a lot of problems that do arise, but the petition system works in getting you into those resources. And then I want to just give one example of for food for thought for all of us who are at this conference. I think conferences are great, but the most important work that we can do is not to come to a conference. It's to be in our community and to work in our community with the people in our community. And again, hats off to Edwin, because with the Amazon Theatrics, he's not floating around to other countries or other distant cities. He's floating around in his community trying to reach out to people. And I just want to give you a food for thought about the other way when we get caught in conferences. And this is part of a lesson for even us here participating. What is the cost of such resources for us as individuals? For example, we have one person who wanted to come to this conference, who's now, I think, listening. He would have to pay $850 to come to the conference. Moreover, he would have to travel to the airport or the bus, and that would take 10 hours. And then he would be away from home for 4 days at 6 hours a day, let's say. That's 24 hours. He would have to have a room. And I just project, for instance, maybe it depends on what the quality of the room is or whether you sleep in a tent, would cost maybe $60 a night, which is $240. And then you would need food. Even if we supply some of the food today here, you might need $40 for food. These are just ballpark figures, but there's a point in all this. When you go to a conference, you need a lot of money and a lot of time. And that is, in my opinion, a resource that you should evaluate, because you can take that time in your own community to go out and talk to people. If you spend 24 hours or 6 hours a day talking to people, can you imagine how many people you can reach out to? Or if you have a theater group, how many people you can reach out to? Not that you're doing this every day, but maybe you do it once a week. You are reaching out into your community and creating a power base. And that is more effective than even coming to a conference. I support conferences for empowering you. But when you go back, the most important thing is to do something in your community. And that is through the power, the empowerment that you get from a conference like this. So the question of how do you use your resources effectively? I'm coming back to use your story of self. And then it's not just a story of self. When you reach out and you go into your community and you begin to work together and you begin to organize, you're creating a story of we. You can make a change of us together. The statement of extraordinary or ordinary people coming together, the ordinary people are the we. And when you come together, you do extraordinary things. The final part of this story is also the story of now, because there is an urgency related to the climate or related to uh, the wars and the violence that is continuously out of control. And doing that in the neighborhood creates a very important asset. And then related to this, which I haven't described yet, but I should describe this. We have a computer system that we've been using in, for instance, Friday for Future. We are, to give you a few numbers, it's nothing terrific, but it gives you a sense. We have something like 120,000 people that are in the system. There have been a lot of mistakes that went into the system. And we actively email roughly 70 to 80,000 people once a month and contact them, trying to inspire them and to reach out. And each group that has interest, especially at a conference like this, you are concerned and you want to do something, you can use a system like Action Network, and it's no cost because it's financed by donors. I will grant you it's out of the United States, but it's a fairly effective system in organizing, and it takes a little time to understand. There's no doubt about it. But having a petition, you can gather signatures and then you can give them to somebody who's a little bit more data oriented, and they go into the system. And then when you want to have your meetings, either a one-on-one or a house meeting or a team that you're creating, you can use the Action Network system. It's coming and flourishing more and more in the United States because we all realize that we have to do something. And the word in that network is it's an action network. And the point being that petitions are just one approach in doing this. And I'll stop there and summarize this by saying that we have to think in terms of global terms about the climate and about peace, but we have to and should act to build in our own communities, because that's where the power is and can be, because we have the resources. Thank you. And questions, unless it's lunchtime. And Mary's on the spot here. Okay, I will urge you, if you can, either to speak up or you can write into the chat box. And let's see if we do have some questions there. Okay. There was one question indirectly for everyone. All of these talks, either by Akar or the talks that we had yesterday and the talks that we will have, or some of the performances have been recorded, and they are available to you in about a week, and I will send out links to them, and you can download them, because there are a lot of these talks. I think Akar's talks you should listen to several times because there's so much information in there.